This is a Monarch coffee picture, and it's a picture seen in the local Cracker Barrel restaurant. When I was eating with my boys, I looked up as we were eating, and I noticed this picture, this nice framed picture of Monarch coffee. And it says, "I can't remember the time when I did not know Monarch coffee. As a child studying the second reader, and just at the collecting age, I was cutting out lions' heads and the large type letters from Monarch packages. These either filled in my desk or pasted on my Ayer's Almanac scrapbook. How the time speeds along. Here I am a grandmother. Time flies, but Monarch coffee is still with me. Quality for 70 years. That is a true picture, a true advertisement from the Ladies' Home Journal. It looks like from March of 1935. The greatest pioneering era of our nation saw the birth of Reid Murdoch and Company, later to become Consolidated Monarch Finer Foods Division. In 1853, America was surging westward. Dreams of fertile valleys, broad grasslands, gold, and just plain wanderlust drew men and women irresistibly toward the Pacific. The long journey across the continent took 4 months. Even the largest of the covered wagons could not carry enough supplies for the trip without dangerous overloading. It was necessary to replenish supplies at the Mississippi before beginning the arduous trek over the plains and mountains. To help meet that need, two young Scotsmen, Simon Reid and Thomas Murdoch, opened up a store in Dubuque, Iowa in 1853 to provision wagon trains headed for the Oregon Trail. As the West grew, it became evident that the center of the country's food distribution was going to be Chicago. Consequently, Simon Reid and Thomas Murdoch moved their business there from Dubuque in 1865. Reid Murdoch's first location was a 4-story building in River Street. The structure was destroyed in 1871 by the Great Chicago Fire, but the books of the firm were saved. The day after the fire, a lot was leased and a 2-story building with a basement was hastily erected. Within 3 weeks after the fire, Reid, Murdoch and Company was doing business as usual. And in 1899, Reid Murdoch built the largest wholesale grocery establishment in the United States on the southeast corner of Lake and Market Streets, formerly the site of the Wigwam where Abraham Lincoln had been nominated for the presidency. The top floor of the building at Lake and Market was devoted to packing preserves and jellies, curing pickles, and producing other similar items. 2 years later, in 1901, a factory was built at Pierceton, Indiana, to make Monarch ketchup and chili sauce. 4 years later, work was begun on a larger unit in Hammond, Indiana, to which all processing activities from Chicago were transferred. In ensuing years, other canneries and processing facilities were opened in Rochester, Minion, Ellsworth, Michigan, Salem, Oregon, and West Chicago, and South Whitley, Indiana. These plants, some of which were transferred to Consolidated Food Processors, Inc. in 1951, resulted in the great majority of the food sold under the Monarch label, being produced by Monarch's own farms and factories. By 1914, Reid Murdoch had outgrown the largest wholesale grocery building and built a new 7-story building on the north bank of the Chicago River between Clark and LaSalle Streets. This block-long red brick building, with its Monarch clock tower and rich fragrance of fresh roasted coffee, has become a landmark in the Loop. Until 1921, the company engaged in general jobbing business in addition to its manufacturing activities and the distribution of its own brands. These included Monarch Yacht Club and several others equally known at the time. In 1921 and 1922, Reid Murdoch discontinued jobbing lines, sundries, tobaccos, and a multitude of other items generally handled by wholesale grocers. Since then, attention and selling efforts have been concentrated on foods only, principally under the Monarch and Yacht Club labels. The Reid Murdoch Company was acquired by Consolidated Grocers Corporation in 1945 and integrated into Consolidated Organization as its Reid Murdoch division. This is the Eastland disaster of 1915, and the Reid Murdoch Company played an important role in that point in history. Early on the morning of Saturday, July 24, 1915, the Western Electric Company invited their employees and their families for a company picnic on ships that were to travel to Michigan. But the Eastland, docked in between the Clark Street and LaSalle Street Bridge, tipped and sank before it ever sailed. Story has it that for some reason, too many people were on one side of the boat. The SS Eastland had over 2,500 passengers, including crew members on board. I believe that approximately 845 people lost their lives, and including 22 entire families. The Reid Murdoch building served as a hospital and temporary morgue as families came to identify the dead. So you can see the picture on the wall at Cracker Barrel is not just a picture that was found. It was actually a part of real Chicago, Illinois history. And I found it quite interesting to learn this bit of Illinois history and Chicago history just by simply looking up while eating at my local Cracker Barrel.